Hey, lovely people, it's me, Jess, and today we have to talk about something. What do we have to talk about? Well, we have to talk about the fact that there are plenty of people out there that absolutely hate recruiters. And I mean it, absolutely hate recruiters. So, in this video, I want to talk about 3 reasons why some people just hate recruiters. And the first one I want to get into is some recruiters are not treating people as people. They're treating job candidates poorly. How are they doing this? Well, let's say a recruiter has a scheduled time with you at 10 a.m. and they call you late. They call you at 10:15 and they don't even apologize for it. They don't give you a heads up beforehand to say, hey, I'm running late. Things do happen, but they're not valuing your time. This may also show up in ways where recruiters are just having transactional conversations. What do I mean by a transactional conversation? Well, a conversation that is really one-sided. They are just talking at you. They're not asking you if you have questions for them. They're not adding value to you, providing information for you. They're just checking off boxes. They're like, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this experience? Do you have that skill? Now, recruiters, yes, we have a checklist. We have to understand if you have certain skills, experiences, abilities that work for this job. Otherwise, we're not going to know if you're a match for a job or not. However, we should be having a conversation with people. We should be able to have a, light conversation. We should be able to understand how your day went. How are things going? Having a light conversation. Some conversations are not that way. I have 10 minutes, I have 15 minutes, I got to find out this information. They're not asking you if you have any questions. They're not even telling you that much about the job. It's just, do you have that? Do you have this? Have you done this? Right? And it's a very transactional conversation. You don't feel like a person in that. You just feel like a number. You just feel like someone they're trying to put into a job filling, right? Recruiters should be treating people as people. At the end of the day, we're in the people field. We're working with people. And if you're not treated well as a job candidate, that's going to ruin your entire job experience, in my point of view, as a corporate recruiter. Now, the next point I want to talk about. This is not being transparent, not providing enough information. Some recruiters are not providing information about the recruiting process. You don't know how many interviews you would need to go on if you were to pursue a job. You don't know anything about the hiring manager, the team. You don't really know a lot of insight into the role itself. They're really holding a lot of information from you, but wanting you to go into the recruiting process. This can really backfire. There have been many times where I've talked to candidates that have had the experience where they interviewed for a job and it was completely different than what they expected. And even worse, there are plenty of people, let me know if you've had this experience happen to you, where you've been through the interview process and everything, you actually get hired for the role, you get in that role and it's completely different than what you were told. Now, this is not always the recruiter along. The hiring team really should be providing a ton of insight so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into at that point. Oftentimes, the recruiter is the first person to give you the basics, the challenges, the good, the bad, the ugly of the role. And at that point, you can decide whether you want to pursue or not. So the issue here is if the recruiter is not being very transparent in that first or second conversation with you, they're not telling you the good, the challenges, they're just kind of painting it as rosy. Everything's great. This is great. The company's awesome. There's no cons at all. There's nothing, nothing wrong with this all. Everything's just perfect, which we know is not true. But that can really lead into some big problems down the road. So not being honest about the job, not being transparent, not providing enough information, that's another reason why people do not like recruiters and may not even trust recruiters. So at that point, as recruiters, we can't just sugarcoat everything and make everything seem like it's perfect. We have to provide information on, who would like the job, who wouldn't like the job, and really figure out if this person is going to be a match and likes the good and the bad, whatever it is, with a position that they are pursuing. My number three reason why people do not like recruiters is something that I actually mentioned in a video. I'll put it up here. But I talked about job candidates actually doing this to companies and why it's really bad. Well, it's also really bad for recruiters to do this thing, and it's ghosting. Ghosting. And this is why I say recruiting can be tied to matchmaking in a lot of ways, because in the dating world, people ghost and you don't like it. You don't like when people just ghost you. Well, in the working world, we don't like it either. When you're trying to get a job, the last thing you want to happen is you have a conversation with a recruiter, you talk with them, they say, oh, you could be a great match for this job, or we're going to, see what the hiring manager thinks about you being a candidate for the job, and I'll let you know either way. And then you don't hear anything. Days go by, weeks go by, you follow up again, nothing. Crickets. That is not what a good recruiter should really aspire to. Every recruiter aspires to any person that they at least talk to is going to hear back from them. Now, I'll say a caveat here. When you apply to a job, realistically, you may not hear back from a company. And some companies even have it stated on their website, if you are a match for the role, we'll reach out to you. Otherwise, you may not be a match for that role. The reason why is that a lot of recruiters are looking at thousands and thousands of applicants. And so feasibly, one person to respond to every single person that applies is really tough. A lot of systems today are automated, some are not. So I'm not talking about the folks that just applied to a role and they didn't hear back anything. That is a form of ghosting. I don't think it's right. There really needs to be some better processes there. But what I'm talking about is when a recruiter has reached out to you, you talk with a person, and then you just don't hear anything back. Now, I have a personal scenario where this has happened to me. I had a manager, they referred me to a job that was in an interesting field, and they thought I would be great for it. I interviewed with a recruiter. They said, oh, you'd be great for this. They passed me along to speak with the hiring manager. The hiring manager was just honestly rude. So going back to treating candidates poorly, they just weren't kind. You could just tell from the conversation they were rude. And after the conversation, I never heard back from them or the recruiter that I initially spoke with. I followed up 2 times, never heard anything back. This is not what a good recruiter should do. Anybody that I talk with, I need to follow up with them. Ideally, recruiters aren't ghosting people, but it does happen. As you heard from my own story, it's happened to me. And this is tough. You apply to a job, you are in the process, you interview for a job. Sometimes you've interviewed with multiple people and you're not called back, or you are followed up with weeks later. I've talked to many people where they were followed up with for a job that they interviewed for 2 weeks later. They didn't hear anything before then, and then they were offered the job, and it's like, well, I didn't hear from you. I took something else, or I'm no longer interested, which I get. So ghosting is a huge reason why some people hate recruiters, and I 100% get that. I've been burnt myself. However, most recruiters, I will say, aren't like that. Most recruiters are really working for people. They're in it with a good heart, and they're doing their best to make candidates feel like they're treated well throughout the process. They're not being rude to you, for example, and they're valuing your time, and they're treating you as a person as they're communicating with you. They should be transparent and providing as much information as they have about a job and about a company with you. And then the last thing is that they're not ghosting. A good recruiter is not ghosting people. And I know it happens. I know it's a tough thing to deal with, but just know, as a job candidate, most recruiters are not doing this. However, there are some that are. And to the recruiters, we have to be real with people. We have to see them as people, not just a number, not just for you to fill your hiring quota or whatever. These are people that we're working with. HR or human resources, recruiting and staffing, these are industries where really what we're doing is making connections with other people. And so we have to treat people well, value their time, make sure that we're being transparent as we can, And at the end of the day, we're not ghosting people. There should be no surprises by the time you get a job offer as a job candidate. That should just not happen. So you should know as much as you can about the job. The other thing is some recruiters have outright lied about jobs. They've outright told you the job is something completely different than what it is. You move through the process, you take more of your time, and you find out the job is completely different and not what you wanted at all. So this is not a good thing at all, and I get why some people that have had that type of experience don't like recruiters. So with that, I appreciate your time today. I hope you enjoyed this video on the 3 reasons why some people hate recruiters. If you are a recruiter out there and you have thoughts on this, I would love to hear from you. If you're a job candidate and you related to anything that I said, I would love to just hear about your scenario. Like, what happened with you? Do you completely hate recruiters? Do you have good experiences with recruiters? Have you had good experiences with a job recruiter? I'd love to hear about it. With that, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.